Hey!
Yay. Okay, cool. I was like, wait, I might be doing this wrong, but I was like, I thought I knew how to do it. I don't know.
No, you got it. Hello, welcome to Soul Sessions. I'm here with my friend Casey Leigh, and she is a psychic, and she is a Reiki master teacher.
Yay.
Yes. What's the ring that you have on?
So I have some obsidian, because how could you not, right?
Yes.
And then I have this little teardrop labradorite that
shines. That's beautiful.
That like super cute.
The obsidian seems very powerful.
Yeah, like I use them when I go live for anything, because I feel like there's always like a lot of an energy exchange, so I like to have something like that like on me, you know?
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. I've got all of my crystal friends here with me.
Crystal friends. I try to not keep so many on my desk because I have cats, so you know.
Oh, okay. They like to scoot them on off.
And get my glasses on too, because I'm like, whew, my eyeballs today.
I love the cat eye look.
I wasn't sure how that was going to go, actually, but since, you know, doing everything online, like clients and stuff, it's just like I need something for my eyes for everything. So it turned out well. It was like I'm going to go in there and get a pair today. And it worked out great. So
yeah, they look really good. I like them. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So I wanted to ask you, how did you get started in Reiki and your development of your psychic abilities, your spiritual abilities?
Yeah. Okay. Great. Love this. I love this question because I feel like it helps. I think it helps a lot of people because you kind of have this, at least what I've seen, a lot of people have this mentality that you are either born with it or you just, you don't have it. And I tell people all the time, like, it's just not true. Like, you can absolutely, like any other muscle or like skill or whatever, you can create that for yourself. So I wasn't like born with it. I was not. I didn't have this. Like, when I tell people, they're like, oh, what was it like being a kid and growing up? And I was like, it was not what you think it is, because I didn't have that.
Okay.
So I started out just like as a kid, I was just super sensitive, which I thought maybe I was an empath, and I thought about that for a really long time. And then it got intense as I got older, because I think just different circumstances require that. I feel like you go and take a look back at like, okay, why is everything on like 11 all the time? You know, why do I feel it so big? And so it was kind of that as far as I thought it would ever go. And then I was like, well, I would love to be a psychic. And I thought that would be so awesome, specifically a psychic medium. And I watched, was it Ghost with Whoopi Goldberg with my mom?
Okay.
That was like the initial.
Okay.
Such a good film, quality. Yes. And that was like the initial for me, was that I was like, this would be amazing, specifically because I thought that I could connect to my grandmother that I loved that had passed. And that was the initial like moment for me of like, I want to do this, but I just thought it wasn't going to happen. And so that's when I started to point more in the direction of Reiki, because I was like, well, I can still do something wonderful and use like whatever gift it is that I have. And then I was like, well, yeah, let's see what I can do. I'll have to look it up. And I had one friend in mind who I knew did similar stuff, and she was a psychic medium. And I'm like, do you know anyone that I could do this with? And she was like, I do it. I could attune you. And I was like, fantastic. Great. So that was kind of like the beginning.
You're finally aligned.
Yeah, because I didn't know. And actually, it was my best friend that I'm still friends with right now. She had met this woman previously. And so I never thought that I would befriend her in that way, but it just kind of, it worked out. We all ended up kind of in this weird circle. So yeah, she taught me all the Reiki stuff. And I was going through a really hard time. Reiki, oh my God, shot me forward in a way that I didn't think was possible. Like really opened up a lot. Like, I think my first attunement, I was super like dizzy. I was like, I'm like, I feel kind of like I'm gonna throw up a little bit. Like, it was just like this really quick heightening of energy where I was like, oh my God, I need to like, she's like talking to me, and I'm like, I need a glass of water. Like, I can't do this. So that was like the first one. Second one, I was just like, I need to do this. Like, I felt like I didn't even need to wait in between. I was like, I got to do the next.
Like, let's go. I'm ready.
Yeah. I felt like it was just right now. Like, and normally I'm the person that's like, well, like I question, you know, so I'm like, is this the thing that I should keep doing, like pay for another one? And then it just, it went from there. It was really quick. So that's kind of how I got started in that. And then the psychic stuff kind of hit me right after. So I think I needed the Reiki to get the other stuff, to be honest. So Yeah.
Oh, that's beautiful. Do you feel like it was like your Kundalini energy that was kind of like coming on like all at once, and you were really like heightening and feeling everything like super intensely?
Man, yeah, it was like I didn't know, like I didn't have really anybody like friends like I have now. I didn't have that to be like, what are you guys, like thinking or doing, or like what is happening to everybody else? It was just me. So I was like, I don't know what to do. My friend said, "We look stunning." Thank you so much.
Oh, that's so sweet.
She just landed. She is gone for the weekend to go check out her wedding venue, actually. And she just landed when we started. Yeah.
Yes.
So she's having a great time, and she's nice enough to join the live. But now, her and I had not talked for a while, actually, too. That was a huge part of my journey. And then we both went in a similar path separately and came back around together, being in like the same place. So I didn't have friends at the time who did that. So it was really, really hard. And then Reiki made it even more heightened, and I didn't know what to do with myself. And I was like, I'm like hearing things, and I'm like, I gotta get up at like 4 a.m. and go sit by like a body of water. Like, why am I doing this? It just escalated so quickly. I was like, I don't know what to do. So I do think that Reiki really, like, it's people underestimate it, I think. I wasn't sure which way I wanted to wear this. My cat's going crazy in the background, so I wasn't sure if we can probably hear that. Sorry. But yeah, I think that it's just underestimated how powerful that it can be. Every attunement was different. Every attunement was more powerful than the last, and every single one opened up a new piece. It was like following these puzzle pieces. It was crazy. And I didn't even really know anything about it before I did it either. So I just kind of was like, I feel drawn to do this. And I was like, I'm going to do it. With no prior knowledge of anything, was just my body was like, we're going to do this. And I was like, all right, sure. Yeah, I'll do that. And yeah, so here I am. But I think that, so when you get attuned, now that I'm a teacher, I can kind of understand it better. Is that what they do when you get attuned on your first level? It's kind of open you up in a really like generalized way. Like they just kind of put that Reiki energy into you. It opens up that channel so you could tap into it and use it for yourself. And then the second one more so focuses on your upper chakras, so the crown and like the third eye. We're like putting that other piece into you to be like, okay, now you can see differently. And that was when also I had a wildly different experience about I felt like in hypnotherapy or past life regression, you have the rapid eye movement that kind of tells you like, okay, we're doing it. I felt that during the second attunement, and I was so thrown off. Like I was like, what is going on? I felt like I couldn't stop it, and I felt like my head was just like, literally you can feel it being put into your crown, into your third eye. So I was just, yeah, what a ride. Everything that I've done so far in my business has been very impromptu, but has definitely led me to where I need to be. So
it sounds like you have like a very deep connection with your intuition, though, because like even though you didn't know what Reiki was, it was like, my body's telling me I need to do this. So we're gonna do it.
Yes, pretty much. Yeah. It was like, do you want to do this today? And I'm like, I guess, sure. That's the direction we're going. Okay, sure. But yeah, no, that's exactly how it all started, and everything along the way has been exactly that. About just like, I guess I'm just gonna follow these cosmic breadcrumbs. I don't know.
Oh, I love that. I use that all the time, breadcrumbs.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. That's a massive amount of energy coming in, and like sometimes your physical body isn't like necessarily like synced up with that yet. Right. Yes. And I love that you said that sometimes Reiki is very like underrated of the modalities, because I started with Akashic Records first. So I was reading people's records, and it was taking a massive amount of energy from me. Like I was having to use a ton of personal energy, and I was just burnt out. And so then I found Reiki, and I had heard about Reiki prior, but my body wasn't ready. Like I had to have a better knowledge of the records and psychology in order for it to be understandable for me, like to understand that concept of what Reiki is. And so when I started working with Reiki, it was a complete lifesaver. It helps ground you, and it's like you're not using your personal energy. It's like a ever running battery system.
That's such a brilliant way to put it, actually, because I think that it helped me a lot too, in that sense of like what I was pulling from was not so much like all encompassing. It was like I had this other power source to kind of grab from and do what I needed to do. So like in the beginning, any session that I did or any like client thing that I did, even before I got attuned as far as I did, I needed the full attunement all the way through, I think, to be able to have that like stamina. And I mean, it's also a matter of taking your time. Like you're not going to be able to just immediately do a bunch of clients all the time. And I mean, I understood that,
Right.
but I was like, there's something else. Like I'm like, why am I so tired all the time after this? But so I think that's a great way to put it, is having this like battery pack that you can kind of pull from and be like, all right, I need a little bit of this today to get through this session, especially when they're really powerful, you know.
When you're working with like those really high vibrational frequencies, especially if you're tapping into like other dimensions and things of that nature, when you're reading for people, or like
so much
past lives, like way back in time, it is so much on your physical body, because our bodies are dense beings, right? And I know we're heading towards like crystalline energy bodies, but like accessing something that high, when you get done, it slams you back down into 3D, into your physical body.
Yeah, you gotta like recenter sometimes after stuff like that, especially when like, you know, which is like one of the main things I talk about with clients a lot too, is that like whether I'm doing readings for you or doing, you know, a one-on-one session or whatever it is, like remembering that energy and time are both fluid. So the way that you're expecting it to work out for you, it's just not always going to be the case. So especially with energy, is like if, you know, we're tapping into, you know, into like a Reiki session, like we've talked about before, like my sessions have evolved so much, and it's kind of like, it's fluid. So there's no like, we have to go here first, here for, you know, whatever. It's more like wherever you're pulled, and it's coming that way for a reason. So it's like another huge thing that I had to adjust to as well, because I would get sessions where it'd be super chill and we're like, yeah, so we're gonna open up a little bit of this today and we're gonna do a little bit of that, and just like, all right, good to go, have a great day, sir. But instead, it's like sometimes you go in and you're like, this is a whole storyline that I am needing to explore. Especially me tapping into the past life stuff and then meeting you at the same time is like wild. I'm like, all right, following the breadcrumbs. But it's like, I feel like it's hard to explain in the language that we have, but it's so interesting, like playing out and being there in the moment. You're like, oh my God, like we're gonna, like, how much time do you have today? So crazy, but I love it.
I feel like sometimes when we do sessions with people, are yours typically an hour, like about an hour long?
I'd say longer. Reiki sessions are probably, for me, I say give or take 45 minutes, and I like to keep it kind of an open, just because I want to spend at least the 30 doing a little bit on every single thing that I need, and then again, leaving it open because you never know what's going to come up.
I feel like the type of work that you do and you're like getting even deeper into is like helping people with their soul contracts, and like maybe rewriting them a little bit and like showing them like, this is what it looks like, these are the ins and outs. And like an hour sometimes, or 45 minutes, I'm just like, it's not enough time to like get through the whole entire like contract.
Yep, that, especially like diving in, like I can't remember if we talked about this in the chat that we had like in the beginning, but I had a client where, I think I did talk about this. I had a client where I was like, I was bouncing from place to place to place to place to place, and I was like, I don't even know. This is supposed to be just a Reiki session, and I have no idea what's happening. I'm like, I'm lost, but I'm like, I'm intrigued. Like I am confused, but I am all right. I'm fully strapped in. Like, let's go. And then describing these things to her, she was like, that is an actual memory that I have, that I remember so vividly. And now, knowing you and talking to you about those things, it makes so much sense as to why those ones are coming up, because I'm not seeing stuff that is kind of like we're not having like a casual stroll through the Akashic. Like, that's not what we're doing. Like, we're not strolling like, in the garden. We're like truly seeing these times where I'm like, okay, that's that is an exorcism, that is a baptism, that's you dying, like straight into you, like that's the last breath you took in that lifetime. And it made no sense to me, and definitely like huge shout out to you walking into my life, because I was like, this girl has opened up so many doors of, I was like, oh my God, that makes all the sense now about going back in senses of like contracts or commitments that you've made in other lifetimes and bringing them forward. Because like that woman's was like traumatic, all of them.
Yeah.
They were not casual, like, oh, and then this was you hanging out with your friend, you know, Jane, and you, it wasn't happening. It was not happening. So, wow, what a time. And so, yeah, to wrap that full circle, like, Reiki sessions sometimes, I feel like you have to have like a window because there's no way that you're getting through it. So, and sometimes you got to break it up to be like, I would really love to do this in a different session also and keep that going. So, yeah, what a ride. It just blows my mind every day.
I think there are a lot of readers that are able to like tap into those more like fun, magical, whimsy things. And then there's like us that go way down into the shadow with people. And I'm like, let me show you all this like stuff that happened to you. And we're like karmic clear out. Like we karmic clear out for people. And so that it, you know, it's a blessing too. So I just downloaded something in. Like you just like made me like open up. Okay, so you know we have like our Akashic record, right? And like we're looking at it through this human lens perspective of this timeline. So something just said we have Akashic records of each one of our chakras. Like there's the whole, and then there's like a mini Akashic record within your each chakra point. And I don't know what that is gonna look like as far as like opening up. But
oh my God.
It makes, so like if you had like your root chakra that carried you like through past life, because you're the same soul in a different body though, right? So they create their own records within the whole. And so we'll have to talk about that.
Yeah, we're going to have to reconvene after this and chat because that's a really unique perspective as well.
I could just see all the roots just now, like going all the way back, but not as a person as a whole, just as that one like root form. So we'll talk about that later.
Okay, yeah, we'll pin that for later. Yeah, right. Yes. Got it.
Okay. So I also wanted to ask you, so when you were doing the Reiki and then you got attuned, right? That is when you felt like your psychic abilities like really opened up?
Yeah. I needed it. I needed it for that. And I totally thought it was like, again, the opposite, that it was going to happen completely opposite. Hence, energy and time are very fluid. And every time I get a reading, which I mentioned to you a couple times, every time I get a reading for myself, or I just, you know, sometimes I'll just pay for it. And I'm like, I don't even want the reading, but I just want to like support. So I'll just like, you know, pop in the lives and stuff. And every person has been like, Reiki. I'm like, yeah, but what about it? Like, I don't understand. Like, they're like, do you do? I'm like, yeah, I do. Like, I'm attuned. Yeah. But like, I haven't been doing it because the need hasn't come up. Like, I just, you know, and I try to promote that as much as I promote my other services, but it just wasn't hitting. So I was like, when the time comes, there it is. It'll be there. And I think now it makes a lot of sense. Again, I'm just full circle within 2022 and it's been 2 months. So it's been a ride. But everyone would mention it. And I was like, I don't know what you want me to do I don't know what you're saying to me. Because they would never give anybody anything else. No one would have any other info. It was like, they just keep saying Reiki. I'm like, okay, sure, I guess. But yeah, that was the initial thing that I think opened up my channels to be able to do that. Because I think that in itself, because I went from having, I think I had one session before I actually got attuned ever. And it was with that same girl, but it was forever ago. And I was like, you want to what? Okay, yeah, sure. And so that was, and then years go by and then I'm like, I just have to get attuned. I don't know. So I think that needed to be in place to break some of those like contracts that we talked about, or open up these like locked pieces of myself and these like forgotten pieces of like my soul. And I really think that was the key for me to do everything else. And like I said, it kind of happened out of nowhere. Like, I didn't have any of this. Like, all of a sudden, I mean, in the course of like a couple months, I was like, what the actual F is happening to me? So it was like getting attuned, though. It was like I said, like the dizziness, like you're opening up like your higher chakras, and then the like the REM with the eyes back and forth, and like I just, every time I think about it, I'm like blown away. And I think that it's also helped me a lot to do some of like the mental health like healing that I've needed, because I've had that as a way to regulate, because the other methods I have weren't really working for me. It was really a struggle mentally for just, you know, whatever was going on in my life at the time. So I also think that it was a way for me to work on my mental health, that I think everyone should be attuned to at least level 1, honestly.
Oh, that is a great segue. So I want to say, hey, Haley. My friend Haley popped in, and she's on vacation. I hope you enjoy.
Yeah, girl, get it.
Yes. Where are you vacationing? So I would love to talk about the mental health aspect. And I think Reiki is beautiful for that, because it's not like we talk about helping other people heal with Reiki, but Reiki is like a self healer. Like we have utilized Reiki to help heal our soul. Right. And so what do you feel like Reiki has done, or like where your mental health has been at, like on your process of like your spiritual awakening journey? And then I'll share mine after you share yours, because I'm betting that we have very similar experiences.
I think that so the journey in itself has you just brought so much for me to be able to work on my mental health. Reiki in particular, as far as mental health goes, has again kind of allowed me to tap into that like extra like battery pack to be like, I have this thing, so not everything has to come from me, because definitely like my okay sir, cat's running back and forth, they're feeling it every time I go live. They do this.
I can see in the background right there.
He just like, sir, please stop. But anyways,
he wants to be a part.
So, he's my ghost cat too. Like he knows, like he's wicked attuned to energy. So like every time I do stuff, he's right under my feet. It's so wild.
What's his name?
That's Felix.
Oh, Felix, cute. Okay.
Felix. Yeah, he's
super cute.
Oh my God, drives me crazy. Don't eat that either. No, thank you.
Did you name him Felix after Felix the cat?
No, actually, I just literally, it came to me one day. I was like, this feels like it matches his personality, so Felix it is.
That's very cute.
But yeah, he feels the energy. How about so I do Reiki on them too, which is also another thing, but that's for another time. As far as mental health goes, definitely has helped me, I think, regulate my emotions and regulate what I'm taking in and what I'm putting out. So it's nothing like super fancy, but it's, again, just regulation, being able to ground, and knowing that I almost have this kind of energetic place to lean on when I don't feel like I'm capable of giving everything I have. So when I'm in, like, I have anxiety, I have depression, I have PTSD. It's a lot of fun stuff going on there. I have CPTSD, so a lot of stuff from my childhood comes up, and that's the main part that it's helped me heal, because I've used it to be able to tap into my chakra specifically and be like, where is this coming from? Why is it here? What is it connected to? And then being able to self, heal in those moments. Like, there are times where I don't know if I'd be able to make it through certain days without it. Like, especially the inner child stuff is huge. Like, when it comes to people, like, I'm jaded, and I'm not going to pretend I'm not. Like, I'm jaded with people, and I don't trust very easily. So this has helped me kind of open up, too, in that way, to be like, why? Like, and can I reverse that? Can I open up something and, get back into my power, instead of from this weakened, inner child perspective of, the world is not safe. So it's given me both a place to lean on, like I said, that battery pack to reach in when I need it, and also has helped me dive in without needing to kind of go look for something externally. I can do that for myself, which is empowering.
That's beautiful. I think Reiki is a graceful way to experience those very deeply rooted traumas that we experience as a child. Because if you're trying to work with your inner children, or younger versions of you, they don't want to talk about that. They don't want to come up. They don't want to go through that. It's scary, right? To relive those things, especially if you had a very traumatic childhood. And so Reiki kind of softens everything and envelops them in that motherly care, compassion, source energy, where they feel more apt to coming forward and talking to you.
Yep, all of that. I think it's definitely you need something softer, and I was talking to my friend actually about this, a couple people, where I was like, I don't know anything about quantum healing, but as I looked into it and did some Googling and stuff, I noticed that there was a lot of it's not a direct one is better than the other in regards to Reiki versus quantum healing, but you can definitely see that in kind of the wording of some of the articles that I was looking at, where it was oh, well, they say that quantum healing is better than Reiki because it's Reiki on steroids, and I'm but sometimes you just don't need that.
You don't need it. Sometimes you need softness.
Yeah, and so that's why I was so I didn't know anything about it. So sometimes when I see people write quantum this or that, I'm I'm skeptical, because I'm what do you mean? And then it's a lot of the same, like, language or the same, like, system sort of with Reiki, but I mean, I'm skeptical. I'm super skeptical, and I'm literally going to take a course on it, like, on, like, Udemy or something, like, online, because I just want to know. They're literally claiming that you can, like, reshape the physical body, like, bones. Like, you can do that. And I'm like, it's up for debate for me. Show me the proof. But I think sometimes you just don't need that, like, excessive, and not everyone's body or vessel is able to handle that either.
Yeah.
So, hence why I like Reiki a lot, because I get a lot of people who are just like, I'm like, how do you feel after? And they're like, I just feel really relaxed. And I'm like, great, love that. That's all we're looking for, right? Just you to be chill. That's it. I'll do the work. You guys chill.
I think that you are quantum healing, though, like, outside of the Reiki, like, when you're going in and, like, accessing people's, like, past lives, right? Because you are changing, like, the DNA structuring of, like, everyone, right?
That's true.
Until, like, right now. And that's not for everybody at every time. Like, I'll have people come and say, like, should I get Reiki or should I get Akashic Records? And I have to read them. And not everybody is ready to go in and do that quantum healing. Like, I do quantum healing on self now, where I go back in and, like, release my past versions from their energetic timestamps. I would not have been able to do that unless I went with Reiki first, because my past versions were not ready for that. Like, all the trauma that I had incurred, too much. Not ready for Reiki on steroids.
You're like, nope. One thing at a time.
Yes. I feel like sometimes, too, in spirituality, and let me know if you feel the same way, that people are so bent on, like, you have to heal your inner child. Like, you have to do that. And I tell people, like, sometimes your children aren't ready for that yet. Like, sometimes you have so much going on in the present right now that needs to be healed. You got to give them, like, time and space. Like, that's one facet of spirituality, right? And it's important. But, like, sometimes you got a lot going on, like, in the here and now.
Yeah. I think it's like, I do think that there's, like doing shadow work is a really, like, buzzword type thing, and I think people get really caught on that. So a lot of times people will be like, well, everyone tells me to do shadow work, and I don't know how to do, what am I supposed to do, and where do I start? And I'm like, but, like, there's way too much focus on, like, what it is and how to do it. The point is, I think, is that when certain things come up that need to be healed in inner child, shadow work, or what have you, that, like, you deal with it when it comes up, because that's them signaling, like, you're ready to do this right now. But you can't really, like, go looking for it. And I think that's not exactly what people want to hear, because they're like, you want the instant gratification, to be like, I am feeling unhealed and I would like to be healed. So if you just give me the book and I'll look and I'll, pinpoint, and then I'll do the work and then I'll be good. And you're like, that's just not how it works, unfortunately.
Like an A-B-C-D-E list.
Down the list. You can't do that. Like, I'm still doing it. Like, I'm still doing it every day. When it comes up, it comes up. And other days, I'm like, we're okay right now. But, like, how are you also going to know, too? Like, unless the situation arises, how else are you going to find those things, You kind of can't. And I feel like that leads into the trauma thing, too, is that psychology is fascinating to me. Like, I obsessed. And that's also why I think I've been able to do a lot of the work that I have been. Hi, Felix. And, like, pass that along too, is that, like, I have people constantly be like, oh my god, like, how do you know all these things? I'm like, trauma. I know all these from trauma, and I've done so much work trying to understand myself. Sometimes you can go a little overboard, but I try to put that work into myself, and then I also have this backing of, like, I would love to be able to give that to people too. So I kind of look at myself as, like, a weird guinea pig in that way. I'll figure it out, and I'll be able to help clients with that moving forward, which, always about my business, and sometimes I go a little ham. But, so I'm trying to do that work to be also able to, pass it along. And I think that mental health, as far as more, like, we'll call them aggressive, like, PTSD related stuff, you imprint those. So when you're imprinting them in there, don't worry, they're going to come up. Like, you won't have to look very far. When they come up, they'll come up, you'll know, right? So, like, for that, I try to tell people that same exact thing. It's like, you're not going to be able to go look for it and find it. Because not only is it imprinted and it will come out when it needs to, but your brain's not holding all of that all the time. You don't have room. Like, you can't just be like, let me just open up my book. If you're not able to do it, and girl, let me tell you, if we could do that, it'd be so much easier. It'd be so much easier. But That's my take on it. I go hard with mental health because I'm like, I hate seeing people feeling this like not empowered, where I'm like, you have so much more power and control than you think. Like, don't rush that.
Absolutely. I tell people too, like, if you're a very hyper aware person, like you dive in there. Okay. And like you said, sometimes you have to be triggered by an actual circumstance and like right now life to pull that stuff up, right? It's like the universe saying, okay, now it's time. Okay.
Right.
So I tell people, like, healing can become toxic. Like, you can get so far deep down into shadow work that like you forget why you like came here to enjoy life and like experience life. And even though you went through like those very traumatic experiences, like having fun is just as much healing as sifting through trauma. Like, so both are needed to balance, because otherwise that leads to more anxiety and depression.
Yep. That's it. That's the huge key to anything in terms of healing, no matter if you're doing this in a more spiritual way or not, is that you cannot solely just function in that state, because at one point I feel like you're making it worse, like you're triggering yourself again, or you're pulling up things that like maybe you're just not in the energy to do that today, like, you know what I mean? So it's okay to be like, I'm gonna put this down, and it doesn't necessarily mean that like you're giving up or anything, but I feel like you can make it worse and you can like re-trigger yourself. And I think that I've done that quite a bit. And I am one to get lost, especially with my natal chart. I am one to get absolutely lost in learning about myself. So whatever thing is that you want to dive into.
Rabbit holes.
You gotta hold on. The rabbit holes are deep in my astrology, like known to do that. So I'm like, you can also like be way too focused on like self-development that you're not then developing. You're just trying to pull in more and pull in more and pull in more because it's a way for you to escape from actually doing that work. And that's huge.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that's a perfect segue into our next topic of ADHD.
Amazing. Yes, absolutely.
Sometimes I feel like that
my kryptonite.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like you have to put things down because you haven't absorbed the tool that you need for that yet. Or like you're not at that like consciousness level yet to tackle that like as the higher self. Like you're too intermeshed and intertwined with the emotions of it. And as people with ADHD, we pull from like so many different sources and like kind of like build our own toolkit from many different things. And so maybe you haven't gotten all of the tools to do that certain aspect of healing yet.
Yeah, I think having ADHD definitely, I think, puts quite a spin on what you're trying to accomplish, especially in this adult world of just regular, like almost, we'll call it like neurotypical people or society. You are so different in the way that you process and so different in the way that you expend energy into things that, everything is just kind of heightened, at least for me, where it's like quick all the time. And so I can, in an instance, within 5 minutes, I can not only have the idea, hype myself up about the idea, go through all the possibilities of accomplishing it, then all the possibilities of how each one of those is going to go poorly and not in my favor, and then lose hope, and then decide that I'm now not doing it in 5 minutes. I'm like, you know how hard it is to accomplish things with my brain? Like,
your brain's just going.
It's so much. I'm like, can we just all, like, I have to, like, reconvene with my team. I'm like, let's talk it over, guys. Little too chaotic up in here. We're going to have to lower it down. Like, we're at, like, an 11. I want to bring it down to, like, an 8, But with ADHD, what's so interesting, going back to, like, the psychology, is that we're looking for that dopamine. And if we're not getting that dopamine, then we're not doing it. Like, that's it. So you also have to follow your heart, and most people who have ADHD have very like creative or intuitive businesses for that reason. You get to set it. You get to choose. You get to choose your hours, your clients, what you're doing, and all that. Like, and all of that creative freedom, I think, is so important, because if you're not feeling it, forcing someone like with ADHD to just sit down and do, bro, it's not happening. Sorry.
My body will literally like paralyze and just be like, I don't know what you think we're about to do, but we're not doing that.
You're like, it's not this. I guarantee you it's not this. Yeah, exactly. That's when I gotta get up, or like I gotta, like, when I'm doing sessions with clients, like, I personally turn off the sound and the camera because I want them to be in their own moment and kind of pull into their own energy, and that way I can get clear access to them. So, like, for me, it's also great because I'm tapping on things and doing things too to concentrate, or like because it's also another way, which ties into the spiritual and like psychic stuff. It's also another way for you to more easily tap into energy with other people, for yourself too, but I find with clients more so, to be doing something with your hands to busy that conscious part of your mind, so that way you can focus. Because it's like, it's focused, but it's not in a really weird way. You're just busying the conscious part of you, so that way the subconscious can come in and kind of tap into it more easily and pick out what you need. Because that's like, or like automatic writing, that's another example. Like the just writing on, and people are like, you're not even writing anything. I'm like, that's irrelevant. That's not the point. I'm not writing a book. I'm just trying to busy my hand and like do something. Yes, something, anything.
I think that's great advice, because a lot of time people, like in spirituality, say that you need to sit in the quiet and meditate, and like that doesn't always work for people that have ADHD. We have to keep our body busy, like our physical body, like washing the dishes and meditating, or walking outside and meditating. Like you have to have your physical body in motion for this to clear.
So much. It's that's why I prefer like guided meditations or something where someone's talking or doing something, because I like need that. So when I jump on occasion, which I'm hoping to revamp and do more of those in the near future, when I hop on and do meditations for people in lives, I'm making them super interactive, because I want you to be envisioning something, because that's the hardest part is, even if it's not ADHD and it's just stress, like it's so difficult to sit down and like you're not clearing your mind. It's not gonna happen. So I like to have something kind of interactive where you're creating a whole scene in your head. Amber in my comment section, she's like, active meditation. I'm like, exactly.
Oh yes.
You gotta do something. So I know a lot of people, a lot of my clients, probably 90% of them at least, are like, yeah, I have to do like a guided too, or I have to do something like that. It's just easier. And then the other part of the meditating too that I tell people is like, you're not trying to fully clear your brain either. That's like another thing. Like you're not trying to like wipe it clean. Like this isn't the Matrix, like you're not trying to take everything out.
Like that analogy,
yeah, we're not trying to do that. But it's like, I forget what they're called. The Sanskrit word I think is vrittis, which is VRITTIS, and it just basically is mental chatter. So you're just acknowledging that those thoughts are there and observing that they're there and understanding that they are thoughts and that you are not thoughts. Like that's the difference in consciousness. Those are thoughts that you're having, but you, me, I'm not those, and you are not those. You are a completely different consciousness in that moment, and all you want is the awareness that there's like this section or border or whatever in between you and those. You don't have to clear it. Acknowledge that they're there and that they don't make up who you are.
That was so beautiful the way you broke that down. Very clear. Yes. I always tell people too, like if you can think about your thought, like I'm thinking about what I just thought about, that means that you're not that thought. Like there's a consciousness like behind the thought.
Yes. Huge.
Yes. And so speaking of hearing thoughts, so my son does not have an internal monologue. He's like 50% of the population that does not have an internal monologue.
I am so jealous.
I'm like, what's going on up here? And he was like, I just see pictures. Like he internalizes everything as pictures, but he has no voice inside of his head. And I constantly have 150 conversations
all at once,
going in like tabs. A giant whiteboard, like all these like things and computer tabs. And I'm like, that sounds so peaceful.
You're like, God, what a vacation. Like,
truly.
Wait, how old is he?
He's 10.
Oh, wow. He's 10. We're going to have to talk about that because I did not know that.
Yes.
But wow. What are you over there, Mom? That's crazy.
Has ADHD, and the way he processes things like is so vastly different than I assume like you do and that I do, because he doesn't have the mental chatter, right? And I'm like, I wish I could be in his brain for like 10 minutes and just see what's going on up there.
You're like, I just want to know. I also feel the same way about him all the time. Like, what's going on in there? Like, what is this?
Yeah.
Sir? Oh my God.
Oh, he's so cute.
He's like, I need to be the center of attention all the time.
I feel like people with ADHD or like are very hypersensitive, like sometimes they see it as a curse, and that like, oh, I can't tap into like psychic abilities and all that stuff. You're actually like hardwired to be better at psychic abilities and spiritual gifts, because we are hypersensitive and aware of everything and everyone and all the energy everywhere. And so it's, if you have that, it's much easier to tap in to these upper three.
It's so much. I agree. I do think like, I think the connection as a whole to like some mental health stuff and spirituality or like psychic abilities, what a wild like highway there in between. Like it blows my mind.
There's a lot of like overlapping.
For sure. And the ADHD definitely, because of the fact that I think that hypersensitivity is like huge. And then also like, it's just weird to me. Like, it's not weird, but it's kind of fascinating, I guess would be more the way to put it, that the mental health of like specifically having trauma is what a connector for you to be able to tap into those things. Don't exactly understand fully why that's the case, but I think it's, again, the hypervigilance or the hypersensitivity and stuff like that. I'm assuming it's just kind of why, you know, it makes it easier for you to tap in, because if you're like, you know, if you have almost like your regular senses and those aren't doing it for you for whatever reason, your brain's like, this isn't enough for us, like we're unsafe, you're going to use your extra sensory perception to be able to pull in more info to, again, protect yourself. So I kind of feel like, if anything, maybe that's why. I don't know. What do you think?
So you know how you talked about you weren't necessarily born psychic, that's like a muscle that you had to build. So I tell people sometimes you don't have to be born an empath or like a highly sensitive person. Like, you don't have to be born that way, but you can incur a lot of trauma. And so, like you said, your five senses aren't enough. It's like, I need to read the room before I walk in it to see what the mood is and how everybody's feeling and sensing and what their thoughts and emotions and the subconscious and all of that going on, because I don't feel safe unless I do that. And so you can actually turn on being an empath in that way. And it's a safety response, like a trauma response.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that, because I think that's it. I think it's just that, you know, you tap into it because it's like you learn that what you have available to you does not feel like enough. And you need to find a way to make yourself, you know, feel safe. And I think that there's that whole thing going on that has been for a while on TikTok, where it's like basically making fun of people who are empaths. And I'm like, it's not necessarily that these people, it's not, it drives me crazy, because it's like, it's some people, it's just people as individuals who I think take it to a level it doesn't need to be taken to. Like, when you're taking anything spiritual to a sense of, I'm godly, and so I have superiority over you no matter what you do, but especially in the spiritual community, that's a red flag. That's not why we're here. I will not gatekeep information. I try to answer my DMs and do all that stuff for this reason, is that I'm not like this, you know, keeper of all things in the world of memory and all of I don't have this godly power. Like, you know, I'm here to tell you what I've already done to help you. That's the point. You raise your vibration in many different ways, and that's one of them. But I think the whole empath and highly sensitive thing got really skewed as, like, again, more buzzwords on TikTok, which is really disappointing to see, because the people like, you know, you and I who are out here doing this, like, we're using it for a purpose. And maybe some people don't do that. You know, sure, you live your truth. But that was a real bummer, because I think that's a huge piece that needs to be recognized. Because I think when you start to realize that, it's almost like being an empath or highly sensitive, I feel like that's also this highway like connection too, where a lot of people start be like, oh, I feel so much, I feel everything all the time, I feel XYZ, like, and then that's kind of where I feel like a lot of people start putting pieces together. So to put that down or to like belittle that was so disappointing for me to see on TikTok and social media, because I was like, fuck, like, damn, like, we're going to discourage so many people who actually do have that, because they're going to be like, wow, look at all these people who are going to make fun of me.
I absolutely agree with you, and I'll go off on a little tangent too, because
every day,
because like, I get the people that are saying like, oh, let's not say anybody is above or below, but that's not what the majority is trying to do. They're trying to help other people figure themselves out. Because before I knew I was an empath, I had so much anxiety and so much depression because I didn't understand my energy body. I had no idea what an empath was. I didn't know what those gifts and, you know, any of that. And when I heard this is an empath and I started researching like shielding, clearing, boundaries, like all of those things, it completely changed my life. Like it got me up out of that hole, and now I use it like as a blessing and like to help other people, right? But there's so many people out here that are like lost and they think everybody is having the exact same experience. Like everybody has empathy. It's just whether you choose to go down that rabbit hole and work that muscle and learn how to like harness that power and like be empowered, right? But like there's just so many people that are lost and they're like, everybody feels this. No, they don't. No, they don't. No, like not like some of my friends, like they don't feel other people's feelings, thoughts, and emotions, and like their impressions. And it's hard for like when I didn't know anybody else, it was hard for me to explain and feel validated of like I feel everything all the time, and it's exhausting.
Yeah, right. That's the key. Is that it is tiring because you're not in that space like in an energetic way to be able to handle those. Like I think awareness is key with a lot of this stuff. And so having the awareness was that turning point exactly to be like, oh, I think I'm an empath, or I think I'm like highly sensitive, like, and then you research and then you find out all those things to ground and clear, and then you're like, okay, this is, you know what I mean, you have something that you have been given that you have no idea what to do with. Of course it's exhausting. Like, do you think I could just like out of the blue tomorrow I'm like, you know what I think I'm gonna do? I think that I'm gonna build a house by myself. Like how exhausting would that be? I have no idea what I'm doing. I don't hang out at Home Depot. I don't know what to do. Like, it would be so tiring to figure all that out. So as soon as you have those tools, it can be incredibly empowering. But then it's a shame that people go off and be like, ugh, like empaths. When I'm like, dude, whatever.
It's the same
it bothers
thing.
Me.
Like, oh, depression's not real. Anxiety's not real. Like, PTSD is not real. Like, it's like the same, it's its own little wheelhouse within that same like scape. You know what I mean?
Oh my God, if anyone ever mutters those words anywhere near me, listen, oh my God, you cannot be love and light all the fucking time. And I try to be as, my friend's like, you need to be more yourself, like you're too polished. And I'm like, I try to be polished because I don't want to be too brash, but at the same time, fuck those people. Whoever is out there saying that those things don't exist, I cannot believe that there are people actually out there saying those things. I'm like having a moment. Like I cannot fathom. I cannot.
I think also it's like, sometimes it's a generational thing. Like sometimes it's like, we don't have time to be anxious, so it's not a thing. Do you see what I'm saying? Like
that's a huge yeah. Or people being like listen, if I say something also to a person and I get when I don't care what you were doing 30 years ago, the point is that what I'm doing right now is incredibly difficult. You acknowledge that. Like awareness is key and acknowledgement key. Whether you're doing like spiritual stuff like this, you're in therapy or whatever, even as a friend hearing it and being like, I really don't know what is going on there because I don't feel the way that you do. However, I'm acknowledging that what you feel is super valid and I believe you and I understand, you know, at least what you're trying to say to me. Like that's huge. And nothing bothers me more. I go off. Well, man, when I see people being treated,
a trigger point.
It's when I see people being like treated poorly, I rage over it. I hate it. I will absolutely, like Aries 300 type of movie, go off on people if I see them being mistreated. I hate that. And that's another way that I find is so bothersome to me when I have clients come to me and be like, my friends or my spouse or my family and I can't do XYZ around. I'm like, so you're just like at your home, stuck there, stifling the essence of who you are, and truly stifling your soul. Like, it bothers me so much. Like, I'm the one to go off on tangents in all of my lives because I'm yelling like for you because I am picking up on it so strongly. And so when I hear people say that, I'm like, God, I'm so angry in your place. Like, I hate that so much. Like, a huge part of me being who I am has been helping other people be able to speak their truth and do what's right for them and enhance that. And I want you to build off of it, and I want you to create something out of it. Like, I don't want you to feel like, and I think it comes from a place too of feeling like that before and not wanting other people to have to do that. Like, I never want to see anybody have to stifle that. Now that I know how much it's helped me, like, I will do anything I can. That's why I said I don't gatekeep. I don't, whatever. If you need to ask me a question, will I always get back to you? Sometimes I can't. But understanding that, you know, that's the key here. I'll do my best. But I just hate seeing people like down and out like that. Like, I want to empower as many people, specifically women, that I can, because I remember what it was like, and I was so miserable. I was so depressed, and I didn't feel like a person. So, anyways, tangent done for now.
You just brought up the big feels within me, because I could feel like I'm so like not disconnected from that piece of myself, but like I've healed so much that sometimes I forget like how deep I was in that like trauma hole.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's scary. And there's so many people that are trying to like dim other people's light because they don't understand it. Like, they just don't understand. So like, I'll give you an example. And so when I first started making content, I got on Reddit, and Reddit is known for trolls, right? But Spirit said you need to be on Reddit. You need to experience this. And so I started posting content on there, and I was getting dragged. And it was because a lot of people didn't understand what I was doing, like with Reiki and things of that nature. And I let it really get to me and really pull me down. And Spirit's like, you have to make a decision. Are you going to be your authentic self and like you are validated in what you're doing? Right? Like, you have to stand up and be a voice for other people to be able to do this. And so I said, okay, I'm just going to do it and push through. And I started doing it and gaining like self-confidence, self-esteem. And now when people like comment things under there, I'm like, I don't even say anything. I'm just like, I bless that person, and I'm sorry that you haven't found that light within you yet. And it's just them hurting. Like, they're hurting on a very, and not excusing behavior, but they're hurting on like a very deep level, and they're trying to pull the light from you to grab some for themselves.
That's huge.
Do you, and we're going to talk about imposter syndrome.
Oh, man, yeah.
Let's do it. Do you have any advice for somebody who is trying to shine their light out in the world, right? And they're not around a lot of other people that are like them, right? Because sounds like it was for you. For me, very much, where like I didn't know anybody really that was on this journey except for like one person. And so, right. And so I had nobody validating my experience around me and how I was feeling. And so do you have any suggestions of like, this is how you can feel better in your body, in your spirit, in your soul?
I think that, oh, my friend's leaving. My phone's on 5%. I love you so much. Have a great time.
Bye.
But, yeah, I think that there is no one size fits all for this. I think that it's something that if you're experiencing, like, you're going to be experiencing probably for quite some time, honestly. Like, I think it's something that needs to be worked at and, like, dealt with a little bit at a time. Like, you're never going to find this one thing that you do and then you're like, oh, like, that slaps. Like, I'm going to do that forever now, you know? Like, I just think that, like, it's going to take time. And I think that the number one thing that I've learned that I've had to try to do is think about those thoughts as almost like a different entity or person. So I still struggle with it now, like all the fucking time. Like I have to, over the course of, you know, the next couple of weeks, like working on my website, and I had to just convince myself that I was worthy enough to have this fancy website. Like I was like, well, I'm not like, you know, selling these like products per se, like I'm not doing XYZ, you know, so like why do I need this? Like why would I pay for this? Why would I need to do all these things? And my friend's like, shut up, like there's no need for you to do this. Like, you know, you are offering these services and it's a nice way to have people be able to find you, book with you, pay, whatever, all in one place. It makes it easy for the clients that you do have already, and like screw anybody else. That's not important right now. So for me, it's still a huge thing, but I think kind of when those moments come up, like, why should I XYZ, you got to think of them as totally not even within your body. Think of them as this external thing in front of you that you're looking at. If you got to name it after somebody that you just can't fucking stand, do that. Like, name them after somebody who makes you angry. And that way, every time that you get that thought, that's like, you're never going to be able to do that. And you can be like, all right, Kyle, why don't you sit down? Like, you know, like, go away. Like, that's what I feel like is so helpful to do. That's helped me a lot. And, you know, you're not perfect. You're going to have days where it just doesn't work and you're just going to need to sit with it. But that is super helpful for me, is like, you can't listen to those, name them something externally, tell them to sit down, you know, because your brain is always going to want to keep you in a place that's of comfortability. And your brain loves patterns and they love behavior. So if you're doing something that's outside of that, it's unsafe and it's not secure and it's uncomfortable. So when you're, you know, sitting down trying to do something completely new and there's nothing to lean it on and no comparison to say it's either going to or not going to work, you're just stuck kind of in limbo. Your brain hates that. So just kind of know that it's this automatic process that's going to happen, that anything that you do is going to feel like that. And that's the brain's way of being like, I don't know what's going to happen. We might be in danger. It's always about that survival instinct. We might be in danger because I don't know what this is going to entail. So I can't predict and see a pattern. Those are those moments that you have to just follow it and have your heart in it. Don't listen to your brain. It has to be your heart. It has to be your soul. Like, if you want to do it, I want you to go do it. Because if you listen to that part of your brain, you're just never going to accomplish anything, ever. Truly. And if you have ADHD, never.
Amen. I feel like I was just in a sermon.
You know what? And that's actually not the first time I've heard that exact sentence. So,
yeah. So I was gonna agree with you and say, like, it's your ego, and your ego is a beautiful thing. Like, it's really just trying to keep you safe and protect you. Like, it's not trying to have ill intent towards you. It's just like, hey, I just want to make sure that we're staying on a steady path.
Yes,
but sometimes that path is not leading to growth. And so you really have to, like, step outside that box, right? And I think that's beautiful advice that you gave as far as baby stepping it. Like, confidence and self-esteem is sometimes not something that just, like, happens overnight.
No.
It's like you have to work at it. It's a muscle, right? And you have to do teeny tiny things. So, like, before I started making content and doing all the things I do now, it was very overwhelming because I was like, how do I get to Tony Robbins or Oprah? Like,
oh yeah, no, literally. You're like, how do I get from here to Tony Robbins? Yeah, sure.
And what I tell myself now is, you can learn anything on YouTube. Like, literally anything. And that's where
YouTube
I start.
certified.
Yes, and that's where I start if I'm learning anything, editing, like how to have good confidence posture. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. Like, watch a YouTube video and your guides, that's inspired action. And then your guides will come in and they will give you the next piece. And then you just keep following those breadcrumbs, a little bit here and a little bit here. And then all of a sudden you're, like, doing all these new wonderful things and you're a new person.
It's not going to seem also, which is why I always, like, I need to do it more myself, but I do encourage people to, like, journal or, like, bullet point, like, some kind of, like, note, just so you can see, because, like, as you're taking those baby steps, like, again, you're not going to be able to see all those tiny things that you've done along the way. And so I think that's important to kind of celebrate those small wins too. Like, I didn't know how to do half the shit that I do. I didn't know what to do. Like, I mean, even editing videos when I was doing YouTube more frequently, which I've stepped away from a lot because it's very tiring. But it's a lot. I think if anything, I am definitely considering, like, reshaping what I offer to still be able to stay on that platform. But, you know, it's like, it's trial and error always. And I didn't know how to edit those videos, and I didn't even know in the beginning how to do the things that people were doing. I was like, how do they do that? Like, how do you put that stuff on the screen? And how do you make it do the thing that it does in that way? I didn't know. And, like, all the money I've spent on trying out different cameras, or, like, should I just get a better phone? Like, other people are doing it from their cell phones. Like, who cares? And, you know, editing is always a thing oh my God. Like, people underestimate how much time it takes to edit all your content. And when you're working for yourself, like, I'm trying to make this my full-time thing, it's almost like, you know, I want to make both work to go on, like, a side tangent, but sometimes you need to 110% be doing this with nothing else, because how are you going to do all the editing and the things behind it? It just takes work and time. So yes, I think keeping track as well, on top of everything else that we've mentioned, is huge, because you need to see those little things to give perspective of how much progress you're making over time. It's not a one and done. It's not overnight. You know, I think that there's also comparisonitis that I talk about a lot, which is that you're looking at other people and being like, well, they can do it, so, like, why can't I do it? And you're like, well, that's just not how life works. It takes time, and you have a different gift than they have, and, you know, whatever, who knows? So I think the bullet points, even if you don't like journaling, like, bullet points is great. Just, like, I like for me, I recently got my EIN, so I'm technically owner of my own business now. And then, yeah, thank you. Purchasing the website, convincing myself to do that was rough, but I did it, you know, and looking back and being like, okay, got that this week, and then I bought the website, I did X amount of hours on said website, I booked this client, I did this thing, and when you look back, you're like, oh my god, I have like 10 things written down. I had no idea I really did anything. It didn't feel like it, because all I saw was what I wasn't accomplishing looking at somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to take just a second. Sarah, one of my friends, said I sent 7,000 likes, got booted, came back, and now there's less than 5. It glitched. Thank you, Sarah.
Oh my gosh, thank you
Sarah,
so much
for sending all the likes. Thank you, because that helps more people get in. So we appreciate you.
We love you so much.
Yes. So I tell people to, like, you use bullet journaling. I use the psychology tool of the Wheel of Life.
Okay.
And so if you Google the Wheel of Life, it has different pie sections. So it has like career, finances, relationships, you know, like all the different things. And just find like 10 teeny tiny things that you can put in each section and do one a day. And when you do that, it teaches your brain to get that serotonin and that dopamine. So you're like, let me do another. And then all of a sudden the wheel is turning together and you're making bigger moves. Like you're moving like big pieces of your life. And like you said, like content creation, like as far as editing, like me to do the little adverts I do for these things, take me an hour. to do one like advert, right? And so it takes time. It's like processing. You get quicker at it. Like I watched a video and it said, if you don't know how to edit, just put your video up on YouTube either way. Like you have to put it up there, right? I have been putting stuff
Post your content.
I've been putting it up there for like a month now, and I'm just now learning how to change the backgrounds of the YouTube video, like for the thumbnail. So it just takes time and practice.
That was huge. I started with YouTube. That was the main thing, because I, in the beginning, started watching people. Like, that's how I started everything. That's how I really got into this when I kind of came back around to getting into it. I watched YouTube, and I was like, I want to do what they're doing. Like, I want to do those readings, and I want to be able to whatever. And I was just like, I'm going to have so much YouTube success. I mean, I have people on there that I love so much and that watch my readings religiously, and I love y'all. But I didn't blow up overnight like everyone else did. Like, I still have less than like 700. But, you know, going through that whole process, all those 700 people watched me change up everything. All my thumbnails were different. When I started in the beginning making them, I look back at them now and I'm like, oof, I don't like that. So like totally different now. And then I went through a period of putting them up on my Mac and editing them, where I literally had like the bar at the bottom and it said what it was, and I'm like looking at everyone else who has all this stuff up on the screen, and I'm like, I'm never gonna be able to do that. And I spent so much time not posting because I was like, I don't know how to do that, and I don't think people are gonna want to watch my content because it doesn't look as fancy as that stuff. So
and people will watch it, though. They will. You will be aligned with people that need to hear the things that you have to say in that time period in the way that you're going to say it. Right?
Exactly.
Because, like, okay. So, like, you and me making YouTube videos right now, and we're working on, like, the editing, right? If somebody jumps and is watching Oprah, that's very disempowering. But if they're watching you and me, who are still like on that process, on that journey, and like, oh, well, theirs doesn't look exactly like, you know, Oprah or whomever, right?
Not Oprah.
But they're posting, but they're still posting the content and they're figuring it out, right? Like, that's very empowering.
Yeah, I think it's huge to, you know, tell people, like, I've had a lot of people come into my lives or like hit me up who are like, I'm like also a tarot reader and I want to do XYZ and and I'm like, great, keep doing it. Cause like, it's literally insane to me sometimes, the people who come to me and truly think that I am so much more. I'm like, y'all giving me way more credit than I give myself. like damn. Like, I underestimate myself like crazy. Like, wow. Yeah. Oh my God. Like, I think it puts it into perspective so much when you're out here, like, sharing with the world. Like, I had one girl in a live where I was doing some readings by donation, and she was like, oh my God, I am so excited. And I was like, I'm so glad that I can do this for you. And I don't think I'm doing anything fancy. And she literally goes, you're literally like a celebrity to me. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, first of all, I love you so much. And thank you for all your support. Truly, you're a gem. And I hope I can, you know, give you a good reading here on live. But I was just like, that's so sweet. Like, you know, like you think that you're out here doing, honestly, to be quite frank, jack shit in the world. And then someone comes along and is like, dude, this fucking helped me more than I could ever tell you. And you're like, that's worth it to me. That's
absolutely. I like how transparent you are too, because I think that helps people on the journey. Like I sit on the bathroom floor and cry and like have meltdowns like all the time.
My God,
I'm, like,
last week,
trying to figure things out. Right? It's not like we don't have it in together anymore than anybody else does.
No,
we're just at different pieces of the journey, different processes of the journey.
Oh my God, that's why, like, my hope, you know, in the near future is that I am in the midst of creating like Discord and Patreon, because I want to create that community with other people, so you guys know, like, it's not just you, like, you're not alone. Like, you can reach out to someone when you need advice, when you need a recommendation, when you need whatever. Like, that's what I want more than anything. The end goal for me is to create within like my brand, is that I want to be more than a community than a brand. You know, I don't want to put too much into the editing and into all that stuff. Would I like it? And is it aesthetically pleasing? Yes. But healing isn't aesthetically pleasing, so like, who cares?
Oh, okay. Yes, I love that. Yes. What a beautiful thing to say. Like, I think that, like we're saying, we show people that we're not perfect, and it allows them to have that space of like, oh, I can do this too. Right? Yeah. Like, that's amazing. Huge. Yeah. And like, I don't want to spend 9 hours editing when I could be like making content for somebody that's going to be impactful. So sometimes I don't spend the 9 hours doing the editing things, right? Yeah. Yes. Speaking of, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I'm just agreeing. I'm like, that's it. That hits right there.
So speaking of like the darkness and like being in that, right? We were going to talk about the dark night of the soul, because I have been having a lot of people ask about like, what is the dark night of the soul? What are tower moments? And so I wanted to get your perspective on what that is, and if you could explain it a little bit to people.
Oh my God, yeah. So, wow. Yeah. Where does one even start? Oh my God. The way that I could best describe a dark night of the soul, sum it up in like layman's terms, is that you experience this massive shift where everything goes wrong. That's the way that I tell people, and I'm like, I know that does not seem super fun, but I'm like, hear me out. It definitely all goes wrong so it can go right. However, you will see a lot of those tower moments are those just like kind of jolting experiences, is the way that I like to word them, because they're not necessarily always bad. They're just very jolting, very unsuspecting, and very kind of sudden, where you're like, oh wow, so everything in my life is now changed and it's been 4 minutes. So it's kind of, I think, difficult to describe, but for the most part, that's kind of how I tell people. Your dark night of the soul is a time where things shift, and it starts off shifting energetically. It's not something that you're usually aware of, because it takes that shift for you to be able to move on in that same kind of like path or direction. You need that little one first, and it kind of shifts your awareness, and you know, you're looking around at things being like, I either want to change, or I know what change is coming, or something along those lines. Like, you can just feel the stirring in your soul. And it's usually at that moment where you have that energetic shift, and then the things externally to you fall away. They change suddenly. My personal experience was, I was talking about this on a podcast I did earlier in the week, actually, which hopefully will be posted somewhere between Monday and Tuesday.
What's the name of it so everybody can check it out?
I think this is called Fortune. I think it's like Fortune and Romance. It's something that was very new to me, that was given to me very last minute, and was like, my friend was like, you want to do this? But the man who hosts it is Taylor Fortune. So you can look him up on YouTube, and he does podcasts with spiritual people like every week. So it's a different, like, spiritual inclined person. It was very last minute. Thank you. My friend was like, this is past my bedtime. Like, they're not doing it until 8. Do you want to do it? And I was like, oh my God. Yeah, I was like, sure. Awesome. Yeah, and I'm going to post about it too when it comes up. So, but we talked about that too, where it was like, you know, when did that happen for you? And I was super specific. Like, I was like, this month of this year. And they were like, wow. And I was like, yes, you'll remember. But I went through, the person I was dating at the time showed up and broke up with me out of the blue. Super random. I was at school when it happened. And I, at that time, being with him, thought that I kind of, for the most part, was a little unhappy with some other stuff in my life, but overall was like, I've really hit this mark where I feel really happy and like really fulfilled. So I definitely didn't see it coming. That's the tower moment number one. And then after that, I was too depressed, and I had just gotten out of an abusive relationship, went into that one. So I was so depressed, kind of dealing with the aftermath of that I didn't really take the time to assess and deal with. And then on top of that, now having this breakup, and we were only together for like maybe a little under like a year and a half. So I'm like dealing with that. I'm like, well, there's no way I can go to school, and I was in school full time, so I was too depressed to do that. Flunked out of all my classes. That would be tower moment number two. And then because I didn't have the school stuff anymore once the semester ended, I didn't have aid for that, so I had to like pick up hours or figure out something. And as I'm thinking about, okay, I can work more during the week, I was working as a waitress at the time. Nope, that went not according to plan. That would be tower moment number three, where I suddenly woke up to them calling me and firing me a couple days later, and I was like, okay, universe, you're really just out here testing me. And then after that, because I lost my job and couldn't find another one, then I got evicted and had to move back in with my mom, which is not a healthy environment for me. So tower moment number four, it was just one after the other, after the other, after the other, constant. It was insane. And that's what I mean by those tower moments, are these things joltingly coming in and being like, what the actual F is happening? And the dark night of the soul is the like condensing all of those together. That's what creates that. So that's kind of like the beginning. And then I started to ascend like rapidly, because you go through like so much at once, where again, that's where the shift becomes this thing that you're more aware of, because you're like, oh, I see how it's playing out now. And I would just have to get up at like 4 a.m. and just like go sit by water somewhere. Like I was just like, yep, here we go. Like I gotta get up apparently, because I'm waking up at 3 a.m, 4 a.m, and I'm like, who am I? Like, why? I don't understand. Like, I'm sad. Like, can you just let me lay in bed? And then I would get up, I would go sit by the water super early, and it was warm enough where I could do that, because I live in New England, so it's kind of hard sometimes, but I think it was more like spring. So it was enough for me to like wear a jacket. I would take this blanket and go lay it out on this little field by water. You could get right up to the edge. I'd sit there for hours until the sun came up, probably like 4 hours. And then I would go and grab myself like either hot or iced coffee or something. And I would, go about the rest of my day from that point. But it was a lot of sitting by the water and processing. And then from that point, yeah, I think that things really started to change for me. That's when I got back into more of like the cards and, trying to incorporate other stuff, like, I don't know, like candles, or just doing the research. But that was the huge turning point in my life, and that was 2016. And I don't think without that relationship that I would have been able to understand what I do now, see things like I do now. Like, I always, when I think about that person, even though they're not my life anymore, like, give them kind of like, thank you so much, that gratitude, to be like, without that experience, we're all in each other's lives for a very specific purpose. Every person is contributing to that you meet, even if you meet them for 5 minutes. So it was like, lame that you see this person that you don't have in your life anymore, but kind of remembering that they're there to do something specific. And so I think about that, and I'm like, thanks so much, because dang, you really helped me get to where I needed to be.
Well, thank you for being so thank you for being so vulnerable and for sharing your story. I appreciate that. I'm sure that is going to help a lot of people. And I feel like people are so bent on like manifest, right? And like that's stuff coming in, but for things to come in, things that are not in alignment anymore have to go. And so that means that you get into the void space. Like things fall, you're in the void, and you're waiting for the new things to come in. And so tower moment.
The tower moment.
Do you feel like the more tower moments that you go through, because it happens over and over and over again, right? Do you feel like the more tower moments that you've been through, the more comfortable you're in the void space? And like, because now, like, okay, this means that like things are rocky right now, but that means like great things are coming that are better in alignment with who I am.
I think that's my perspective now. Like, again, it's like practicing anything or any sort of like skill set, right? It's like you go through it so many times where you start to understand it. It's like understanding the way of the world or the way of the universe works, where you're like, I now know that those things happened because I wasn't doing anything about it. And then spirit or your guides or whatever, they come in and they go, you don't want to move. We will move.
Yeah, they're like,
get out.
Yep.
That's when you get those. So that's why I tell people all the time, I'm urging you, please listen to those moments, listen to your intuition, because then if not, you're going to get the tower moment. Sir. He's like, me too. You're going to get the tower moment if you don't get going, So it's like, listen to yourself, listen to your heart, listen to your soul, listen to where you're led to be, because that's huge. And if not, listen, you don't want to be placed there by spirit. I think you have this deck too. I think I got it from the Mystical Shaman Oracle.
Yeah.
I forget what card it is, but there's a card in there, and I'll never forget this line. It says, catch God on a whisper, not on a roar, or not on a shout. Ooh. Something like that. And that stuck with me ever since, to be like, right, you want to catch it while it's there, gently guiding you, not while you're being thrown off of a cliff.
I'm finally getting to the point where, like, I've waited too long to do things, like, when I know I need to. And, like, I've been slammed down into, like, well, we're going to force it, right? So now, like, when I get those intuitive pings of, like, hey, we need to do something different or go in a different direction, I'm like, okay, let's go.
All right, great. I'm ready. Let me buckle up. Like, let me get into my seat.
Yeah, let me put my seatbelt.
Yep.
Yes.
That's perfect. That's definitely, same thing. You got to pay attention to that. That's huge. Like, but before I, like, met you and talked about all the Akashic stuff, that's exactly what happened to me. Like, they sat my ass down for 2 months. I didn't do anything. I, like, wasn't taking clients, or I would only take the ones that I really had already, like, built a rapport with, because I just, like, didn't have the energy to do other stuff. But I, like, wasn't taking clients, and I wasn't making content, and I wasn't doing YouTube, I wasn't doing any of these things, because they were just like, sit down and shut up for a minute, like, we're trying to help you do this, but, like, you can't do it in the state that you're in. So it was like
in hermit mode.
You needed to, like, get recalibrated. It might be the word that I want to use. But it's like, I'm like, I don't want to do this. Like, and I'm not saying it's easy by any means when spirit's like, hey, sit down, shut up. But, it's probably in your best interest to do it.
Yeah, hermit mode has been a funny relationship that I've had. Is like, you really have to, like, recalibrate to, like, who you're stepping into. Like, there's that little period of letting go of, like, past me, but not fully into, like, new me. And so, like, you feel, like, lost, like, in the sauce of, like, nothing's moving, nothing's happening, right? And, like, things haven't come yet. And it's because you're getting ready to step into that new energy form, that new consciousness level.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah. And I think you can't see it, so you don't understand. But it's like, that's those moments where you have to, like the Fool card is like, this is talking about a person. When I get that in a reading, I'm like, you can absolutely have what you want. What do you want to put into it? What do you want to commit? Because spirit, in that sense, when you see, like, the Fool card and you see the Wheel of Fortune, it's like, things are moving. Do you want to be a part of the ride, or do you want to struggle to keep up? Like, you have to be able to blind faith, just trust in those moments.
Absolutely. I want to talk about one more thing before we finish up, because I know we're getting this on time. So, you are really into astrology. I know you don't call yourself an astrologer, but I wanted to ask you about your lives that you do on Sundays, because they're very astrologically based, right?
Absolutely.
And so I wanted to give you space so you could tell people about that, because I know there would be so many people that would love to come and join in them.
Yeah. Okay. So this is funny, because we talked about this and you were like, I don't see other people doing that. But, like, for me, when I started, like, YouTube and stuff like that, I started watching people who did that, and that's where I got that from. So I was under the impression that everybody did this, and I was just a part of it.
I had never heard of it.
Oh, I love it. Okay. So I break down my lives when I do readings. I do the free collective readings, and Jen, those lives are amazing. Thank you. I love you guys so much. I love you. You guys are wonderful human beings. But so when I do them on Sunday, we get in at 10:30 a.m. Eastern time, and then I do them by the element. So I do them by water signs, maybe. So that would be Pisces, Cancer, Scorpio. Earth would be Taurus, Virgo, Capricorn. So I break them down like that. And that's an easier way for me to be able to do all of them and give a more kind of personalized reading without having to do each single sign. Because I've done that, and I started doing that in the beginning, and I was like, God, I am so tired. I cannot do 12 of these. But I see some people doing it. It's like, good for you, babe. Just not for me. But you do you. You're killing it. So I do those every single Sunday, and I break it down that way. And I usually do, like, we're in Pisces season right now, so we'll always start with whatever the element is of the sign that we're in. So next season will be Aries. We'll start with all the fire signs instead. And then I just follow the line. So after Aries would come Taurus. So it would be like Aries, so fire signs, and then Earth, and, you know, etc. But I base them all off of astrology, and I go on astrology tangents all the fucking time. I am not an astrologer, and I don't say that only because of the fact that I don't read charts. So I don't feel like I have enough knowledge to talk about specific aspects and kind of how they intermingle. Some stuff I know, but yeah, so that's what I do on Sundays, and I love it. I have people tell me all the time that they put it in their calendar, in their phones, and they're like, I have an alarm set for your live on Sunday. Like, so sweet. I love everyone that comes in and supports me. They're all wonderful, and that's, if anything, that's the community that I always wanted, and I feel pretty successful that I built one, so.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
So 10:30 p.m.
10:30 a.m. on Sunday.
A.m. I'm sorry, 10:30 a.m. on Sundays, Eastern Standard Time.
Yes, ma'am.
And you do them on TikTok.
Yes, yes, I do.
Yes. Perfect. So I have one question for you. Okay. So I have been going down like the rabbit hole a little bit about chakra personality styles. There's a woman on YouTube. Her name is, she goes by Chakra Boosters, and her name is Vicky Howie, and I'll send you one of her videos. But each one has its own personality type. And so usually she said people have like, they can be a blend of different ones, but you have like one powerhouse chakra. So if you had to pick a chakra for yourself, which chakra do you think that you would be?
That's a good question.
And why?
I feel like if anything, I would probably pick my main one to be the sacral, I think, at least. I feel like I can kind of go back and forth between like two of them, because I am very much so in my higher chakras when I'm doing the work that I do. But as a person, I feel like I really tap into that a lot instead. The sacral, that orange energy is like, like I'm all about the divine feminine and operating out of that. Excuse me, get away from my bag of clothes. He's like, I would like to know what you have. So I think that that's probably the number one. The energy behind it, I think, like I'm a fire sign, so me being an Aries, can you tell all the red?
You have a very red aesthetic everywhere too, like in your space.
not planned, but here I am. But I think that, you know, and I personally think that you also tap into different parts of your astrology at different points of your life too. So I think that kind of ties in. But right now, I think I'm really operating out of that vibe, is the more like fiery aspect of me, hence the, you know, sacral. I just feel like it's like, what a powerhouse to operate from. And also, like, in human design, like, I'm the sacral authority, so that's where that would actually make sense. I'm just kind of putting that together right now in this moment. I'm like, wait a second. My eyes like glaze over. But it's the divine femininity. It's the sacred sexuality for me. Like, I'm all about that. I'm totally about, like, the feistiness. Like, you know, people know me only so much being, like, on the lives and who I present myself to be. But, like, you don't know how spicy I am behind the scenes. So, like, you know, I will try to reel that in a little bit, but I'm outspoken. I'm boisterous. I have opinions. Like, I am never shy about it. I may be shy in certain situations in the beginning. I'm trying to assess people, you know, more than anything, I think. Being like, are you going to be offended? Because I want to be nice. Like, I don't want to offend anybody. But also, like, I'm very vocal about how I feel, and I'm vocal about what I've been through. When I went through my really psychotic, abusive relationship, I came out the gate telling people about it. Everyone's like, you don't have to talk about it, like, if you don't want to. I'm like, no, because if you don't talk about it, you create a stigma and a taboo, and it becomes more powerful in a way you don't want it to be. So I will talk about it every single day of my life. I want other people to know, so I'm vocal about everything in that sense. And normally, I guess you could be like, well, that's pretty throat chakra of you. But it's more that I'm pulling it from the sacral to be like, here are my experiences, and I'm using that divine femininity in that chakra to be like, let me give this to you, because I want to see you empowered, and I want to see you healing. And again, that feminine aspect, I think, is really huge for me, too.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah. My friend Sarah says she wants to learn about the chakra personality types. I will send you her info, and I'll send you her info.
Yes.
So you can watch all of them. It was so like eye-opening. and enlightening
Yeah.
watching them. I'm sure will help you in your practice too and help me in mine.
Oh my God, yeah, I can't wait now.
Yes. Yes. Well, Casey, where can everybody find you? Like on all the different platforms, and what services do you offer? Right. And you're an attuner, so I want to say we talked a lot about Reiki. So if anybody's wanting to get into that, Casey's the one to see.
Yeah. So as far as what I'm offering, I do the one-on-one tarot sessions. I do my Reiki sessions as well, which a lot of this is done distance because a lot of my clientele is online. So you can do it at a distance if anyone is obviously thinking about that. And then that's kind of the majority of what I'm doing at the moment. I do attune people. I prefer not to do the attunements online. If you are in my general area, I will definitely, we'll hook up, we'll figure that out. But I'm a traditionalist when it comes to Reiki, so I try to keep my attunements for in person so I can build a connection with you and also offer continuous support for you to be able to exchange healing and, work on that together. And then as far as finding me, I'm in the midst of creating a new website, so don't quite have that up and running yet, but you can find me obviously on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube, all at Casey Leigh Reiki for now.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for joining
Thank
me
you
today.
for having me.
This is so much fun.
Yeah, I'm loving this. I'm glad that we got to do it. So thanks for choosing me. I appreciate it.
Yes. I was very honored to have you on. I love you very much. And your personality, your spunky personality. Yeah. And also, I'm going to have you come into the spiritual school me and my friend Ray are putting together so you can teach some people some things.
Oh my God, I would be absolutely honored. Yes, definitely let me know. You know where to find me.
I will. And thank you to everybody that joined in.
Sarah
Thank you
said,
guys. This is amazing, and I'm glad I came across it. Thank you. We love everyone's support
and
appreciate
love.
You.
Yeah.
Love you too. So I hope everybody has a magical day, and you as well, Casey.
Yeah, you as well. I'll talk to you guys soon.
All right, bye.
Bye.